In January 2007, Steve Jobs walked on stage and held up a phone that would become the most profitable product in the history of business. The chip inside it had been offered to Intel first. Intel's CEO ran the numbers and said no. Here's the thing. On the numbers in front of him, he was right. In 2006, Intel was not just a chip company, it was the chip company. Around 80% of the world's personal computers ran on Intel processors. Nearly every server and every data center did too. 4 notes and the words Intel inside had turned a component most people would never see into one of the most valuable brands on the planet. But here's the thing most retellings miss. Intel was not really a chip company. It was a gross margin company. It earned around 60 cents of gross profit on every dollar of revenue, a number almost unheard of in hardware. Every factory it built, every roadmap it drew, every deal its sales force chased was built to protect that number. And a company built to protect a 60% margin has a specific shape. It does not chase cheap. It does not chase volume at any price. It walks away from any business that would dilute the number. Wall Street loved them for exactly that. 2005. Apple comes to Intel. They are building something new, a phone, and they want Intel to make the main processor. They name a price. They will pay that price and not a cent more. And the price is below what Intel forecasts the chip will cost to build. The man on the other side of the table is Paolo Tellini, Intel's chief executive. Years later, he described the decision to The Atlantic. Here's what he said, quote, "There was a chip that they were interested in that they wanted to pay a certain price for, and not a nickel more, and that price was below our forecasted cost. I couldn't see it. It wasn't one of these things you can make up on volume." Unquote. Now here's the part where the standard YouTube essay tells you Intel was arrogant and blind. The standard YouTube essay is wrong. Look at what Ottolini was actually staring at. Intel earned its living selling high-margin processors into PCs and servers. The Apple deal was a low-margin chip, priced below cost, for a product with no track record, in a market Intel did not lead. To say yes was to hand a factory line to a product that lost money on every unit, to chase a market that paid worse than the one Intel already owned. On those numbers, by a chief executive responsible to those shareholders, the answer was no. It was the obvious answer. That is the problem. Ottolini admitted one more thing about it later. The cost forecast, he said, turned out to be wrong, and the volume was 100 times what anyone at Intel had modeled. Quote, "My gut told me to say yes." The iPhone shipped in 2007 on a chip built around an ARM core, not Intel. Apple went on to design its own processors, every one of them ARM, and sold more than 2 billion iPhones. The single most valuable computing market of the next 20 years opened up, and Intel was not in it. So Intel tried to buy its way back. It built a line of low-power chips called Atom. It paid tablet makers to use them, a subsidy the company politely called contra revenue. Stat callout, mobile losses 2013-2014. The mobile group lost $3.1 billion in 2013, $4.2 billion in 2014. Revenue in that unit collapsed from $1.7 billion to $200 million in 2 years. In 2016, Intel canceled its remaining phone chips, cut 12,000 jobs, and quietly walked out of mobile for good. Then it happened again. The next low-margin market Intel's model told it to skip was the graphics chip, the GPU. For years, a GPU was a toy for gamers, lower margin than a server processor, beneath the roadmap. A company called NVIDIA owned it. Then artificial intelligence arrived, and it turned out the GPU was the most important computing device of the decade. The entire AI boom was built on NVIDIA chips. Intel was again not in the room. And it happened a third time, inside Intel's own factories. Building chips for other companies, being a foundry, was lower margin than designing your own. So Intel left it to a Taiwanese company called TSMC. By the 2020s, TSMC's factories were a generation ahead of Intel's, and the most advanced chips in the world, including Apple's and NVIDIA's, were being built there, not in Oregon or Arizona. By 2024, the bill came due. Intel's chief executive was forced out. The company posted some of the largest losses in its history and cut tens of thousands of jobs. And in 2025, something happened that would have been unthinkable in 2006. To keep its factories alive, Intel took an investment from SoftBank and an equity stake from the United States government. The company that had once been a synonym for American technological supremacy now had Washington on its cap table. Here is the part of the story that generalizes. Intel did not fall because Paolo Tellini was a fool. He was one of the most disciplined operators of his generation, and the discipline is exactly what did it. Every no Intel said, to the iPhone, to mobile, to the GPU, to the foundry, was the correct answer on the spreadsheet in front of it. Each new market started out low margin, unproven, beneath the number Intel existed to protect. The math said walk away. Intel walked away. 4 times. This is the trap. When a company's identity is a high margin, it cannot rationally fund its own disruption, because every disruption begins as a worse business than the one it already has. The new thing is always cheaper, lower margin, lower volume, embarrassing to the roadmap. By the time it is obviously the future, it is too late to be early. The smartest people in the room can see the cliff. The margin will not let them turn the wheel. You saw it with Kodak, which invented the digital camera and buried it to protect 70-point film margins. You saw it with Blockbuster, which could not bring itself to give up late fees. And you saw it with Intel, which could not bring itself to sell a chip below cost, until the chip below cost became the entire industry. So when you evaluate a dominant company, do not ask how strong its margins are, ask the opposite. Ask which low-margin business it is too proud or too profitable to enter. That business is where its disruption will come from. That margin is the exact measure of how far it cannot move. Intel's gut said yes. Intel's spreadsheet said no. The spreadsheet won every time, right up until it lost everything. When your best number is the thing being disrupted, the number always votes no.